get you more on that story. Bring in our reporter Erin Bates here in our Johannesburg studio. Erin, you've just been looking at President Ramaphosa's papers. What does he say?
He says plenty in defense of his urgent interdict application, which is now to be heard by a full bench in the South Gauteng High Court on Thursday. Timbekile, just going through the 70-odd pages of this replying affidavit filed this afternoon at 3. It was meant at 2, and the President will be seeking condemnation for that slight delay. Not uncommon from parties in urgent matters like this because, of course, the timelines are truncated. The President saying the harm he will suffer if he doesn't get the relief he's after is manifest. He does not have an alternative remedy. He does not have to subject himself to unlawful prosecution, which is what he's arguing Zuma is driving. And he says there is a clear case here where the court must intervene. And this all hinges on whether or not the court will grant him the relief, which will shield him from having to appear in court on the 19th of January. I think important also just to note that Ramaphosa insists this entire prosecution, this private criminal prosecution being driven by the former president, one, he insists and repeats, was motivated in terms of timing by the ANC elective conference and his candidacy for a second term, and also that Zuma has used what are invalid summonses and nollie prosequi certificates against him.
And Erin, at the heart of this, I mean, at its genesis, it was supposed to be a case about President Ramaphosa's alleged failure to intervene on behalf of Zuma, who claims abuse, basically, or violation of his rights through the arms deal prosecutor, advocate Billy Downer, right?
That's right. So if you think about the nub of Zuma's complaint against Ramaphosa, he's argued that Ramaphosa is an accessory after the fact. The fact of the crime he alleges that State Prosecutor Advocate Billy Downer committed in terms of those submissions in the arms deal case, which contained some of Zuma's medical records. A lot of that has faded into the background now. We're not seeing Zuma argue again or seek some other avenue through legal recourse to have this commission of inquiry he wants into Downer and the NPA, which is what he'd written to Ramaphosa about and which he argues Ramaphosa neglected to institute, which is where this grievance comes from. It's all about getting Ramaphosa in the dock at this point, and that informs the President's submissions that there are political motives at play here. The other thing that Ramaphosa says is that the nollie prosequi certificate from November refers to crimes that were allegedly committed around August, and yet Zuma's complaint to him in terms of a potential commission into the NPA and into Downer was made well after the 25th of August, and the crime was allegedly committed in early August. So a lot of technicality there or dates, but the President's argument is that the nollie prosequi certificates that Zuma has don't refer to the dates pertaining to the alleged negligence or omission by him. And so none of the nollie prosequi, none of the summonses which have been acquired by Zuma are lawful. And the President's defense again and again in these submissions this afternoon is that he cannot be taken to court for what is an unlawful and unconstitutional prosecution. To entertain something illegitimate like this would prejudice him and his rights to freedom, his rights to dignity, and so on.
And the Jacob Zuma Foundation has, in a statement today, as I understand it, taken issue with the fact that this case will now be heard by a full bench of the High Court. On what grounds?
Yes, so this is another key development that's come out of today. We initially thought that it was going to be one judge and that oral submissions would be submitted through a virtual hearing. It's now become a full bench of the High Court, which will sit on Thursday at 10 o'clock. Initially, some sort of positive remarks we had from Mzwanele Mani of the Jacob G. Zuma Foundation in terms of the extent of legal clout, you could say, who would be presiding over this matter. But subsequent to that, Mani has expressed some points of doubt or concern, asking, is this something that would be afforded to any other person or litigant in the same situation as Ramaphosa? And this ties in with some of Zuma's submissions in his answering affidavit filed on Friday, where he argues that the President is seeking special treatment, that he wants to have different sets of laws for himself compared to the former President. Ramaphosa hits back at that too in these submissions. He insists he doesn't want special treatment. He simply wants to assert his rights not to be embroiled in something which is unlawful and which is set to cause him and his office and indeed the country irreparable harm.
Erin Bates, thank you very much for that update tonight on the legal battle between current President Cyril Ramaphosa and the former President Jacob Zuma.